Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Hey guys, before we get going on this episode, I made a mistake on my guest's name. My guest is Coach Joghee. I apologize for that. And anyway, on with the podcast. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining us here for another episode, wherever in the world you are listening from, whatever platform you're listening to us on. As always, thank you guys so much for giving this episode a listen and for sharing the podcast to those around you. Really, really appreciate all the support as always. Today's topic is one that I know I have some personal experience with, and I know that we never really want to be in this position as coaches, but the reality is if you're coaching for any length of time, you're probably going to be in this position. And so what we're going to talk about today is when you find yourself in a situation where you have an underachieving team and you're trying to get that underachieving team back on track. Whether it's on the court issues, maybe there's some things off the court happening. There always may be a situation potentially where your team just isn't performing up to the standards that not only you hold them to, but your program holds themselves to. And when that happens, we got to work on solutions to get them back on track and get them performing at the level we expect them to be performing at. And that's what we're going to get into today. So if you find yourself in that situation, this should be a great episode for you. And if you don't find yourself in the situation, just tuck this away for later. And again, I hope you never end up in this situation, but if you do, this episode will be here waiting for you. So my guest to talk about their experience about getting an underachieving team on track is the Park Hill South boys basketball varsity assistant coach, as well as the director and head coach over Faith Over Fear basketball, which we will definitely get into as well. I'm very happy to be joined by Coach Ricky-Joshua Joghee. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Thank you. And as I said at the beginning, I've been in this situation before. I may be in it again, so I may be doing some learning as well. So I appreciate you giving your time on this one.
No, thank you for having me.
All righty, Coach. Let's go ahead and get started with your basketball journey. Where's the game of basketball taking you? Where has your coaching journey taken you? And how'd you end up where you are?
Oh, man. So, basketball has always started at a young age. My parents always tell me the story all the time, but I was too young to remember. So I grew up born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. And as you know, Chicago, Illinois, the relation with basketball, it's always the Bulls, and Michael Jordan. And, apparently when I was, I was 96. So I was like 3 years old when the Bulls were making that second three-peat. The city was hot. Everyone was talking about it, not just Chicago, but, the worldwide phenomenon of Michael Jordan, the Bulls. And, allegedly, I don't know, maybe my parents are telling me the story to make me look good, but apparently I was able to name off every single player from that roster at that time, and like it's something they always talk about, but, basketball has always been a passion of mine. Gym rat, always at the parks, rec centers on the weekends, never partied in high school. Every weekend you'd catch me at the rec center at the parks. That's something that they don't do nowadays anymore, is going out to the parks and playing basketball. But, if there's any young kids listening to this, that was a big thing back in the day. Like we used to go to the park and play all day long. So that's really where it started, man. Just always being involved and at the YMCAs and just really living that life and loving the game of basketball.
Yeah, that's always interesting to hear people give their perspective on that about, how much players play. And then I know I've heard a lot of coaches talk about, how much they play in terms of maybe AAU or maybe in more organized senses, but maybe some of the park basketball or some of that more recreational pickup basketball isn't played as much as maybe you and I did growing up.
Oh no, dude. And it's honestly like, and I don't want to sound like that guy, when you're young, you always hear those people say back in my day, and like I'm turning into that guy right now. But, it's honestly, it's very a humbling experience, because it's not a controlled environment. It's outdoors. You might play in the game, it might start raining, and then you guys might have to wait a little bit, maybe play in the rain and then or go back in a couple hours, or you go somewhere and it's guys you never know. guys you never met, guys who are way older than you. You know, you show up to the park and it is what it is. Like you earn your stripes. Are you going to get picked up or not? Like, you know, so you're not entitled to anything. It's not like I have my ideal trainer. I have the nice gym. I have the shooting gun. It's dude, like you're really like, you know, it's like you're really getting it out the mud. And that's, you know, I feel like it's such a separator because, you know, there's some kids nowadays who do that, you know, to the extent of playing with older guys and, you know, going through that kind of similar situation. But, you know, it's such a different way to grow up when you're playing on the blacktop, kids you don't know, getting that day or you just suck terribly and people just talk trash to you all day, or you don't get picked up, or you call next and then 5 other teams play before you because they're just older than you and you're not going to do anything about it. You know, like it's different, man. And it builds a different kind of character to you.
I always like that when playing pickup or whatever. I always like that, you know, you win and you stay on. And I think that taught, you know, me, not that I played at any level of any stature, but just that level of competitiveness of like, oh, the only way I'm playing is, you know, I better win and stay on. Otherwise, there's like 3 other teams waiting, and if I gotta wait again, I'll be done.
If you're not winning and you get off, then you might as well go with your friends, hop on that bike, and go to the park down the street and just play with each other, because it's not gonna happen. But yeah, man, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too, just to put a bow on it, and I'm sure you have experience of that too, is just not getting any foul calls or not looking for foul calls. You know, you just got to get beat up.
No, you better not call foul, because I was looking like, dude, she's like, shut up. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's I've seen it go both ways. You know, I've seen the guys who aren't going to get anything called because no one knows they are and they're just not that good or they're timid. And I've also seen guys who, you know, at time are top players in the state. They get called for that foul, and then it just turns into a snowball events of trash talking fights, and it just turns into, you know, a bloodbath. So I've seen it all, man. It's just a good way to earn your stripes. That's the best way I can say it.
Nothing quite like it, I'll tell you that, playing in that setting for sure. Awesome. Well, Coach, let's talk really quickly about you are the director and head coach of Faith Over Fear basketball, and I wanted you to get into what that is, what the mission is, what it's all about, and your personal role and involvement, not just as head coach, but also as a director of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I started the organization in 2017, and it really was about all of the cultivation of my experiences with basketball, working with the youth. Ever since I was little, I've always been, like I said earlier, at the YMCA, and my parents taught me at a young age to give back, you know, always give back. So I spent a lot of time volunteering at the YMCA when I was old enough. I worked in after school programs. So I was, you know, heavily involved working summer camps. So I was always with the youth. And when I was the Boys and Girls Club, when I moved to Kansas City from Chicago, my first job in Kansas City was working at the Boys and Girls Club as a athletic director and a mentor and coach. So that experience, you know, taught me a lot, and it really like made me realize this is what I want to do with my life. But, you know, sometimes in that journey of figuring out what you want to do in your life, you get told one thing from your parents, one thing from other adults, from your friends, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, what's a good career, what's not a good. And you're just like hearing so many voices. You're getting pulled from so many angles. And sometimes things you want to do, you don't want to do it because you might sound crazy. You might sound like a disappointment, or it might be quote unquote unrealistic, or, you know, whatever the case may be. So in 2017, you know, I was in a spot in my life where I was like really hitting, like, it was like, all right, what are we going to do now? Because nothing really, you know, you've had all these experiences, but there's not really a direction of what we're doing. So, you know, I was in Wichita at the time. I was at Wichita State. I left Kansas City. I was like, I need to just go on my own and just do this on my own and get away from everything and just kind of go like in a monk kind of, like, you know, just get away. Like, I'm just gone. We're going to figure out what I'm going to do. And I had, you know, moved with some money saved, and I went to a studio place, like $380 a month. Like, there was dust mites. I was in an air mattress, like, true story, man, air mattress. And I was sitting there and I was like, man, like, you know, like, if I just thinking, and I was like, you know, if I put my faith over my fears, which at the time was my faith, and I couldn't drop basketball, like, no matter what, like, you know, it was always something that was always coming back in my life. And I was like, dude, like, I have faith that I'm meant to do something with this sport. whatever the case may be, whether it's working with youth, whether it's coaching, training, whatever it was, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to put my faith over my fears of disappointment and failure and whatever narratives that come up from other people. I'm going to trust that. And with the cultivation of working with the Boys and Girls Club and youth mentoring and, all that stuff, I was like, you know what? This is what we're going to do. I'm going to start a program, a nonprofit organization, because I've seen that's what the basis is of all these programs and what they do with the youth. And I'm going to do mine with basketball. And as I started digging deeper, I kind of had the sense of the direction of where I want to go with my organization, which has been a roller coaster, man. But, it's been a good ride. This past summer, actually, or spring, we had our first ever unsigned senior combine. And we had about 49 kids come, had to tell a couple of kids no, unfortunately, because we had one gym space. It was just going to be way too crowded.
Yeah.
But we had 11 kids from our combine go on to play college ball that following fall who were unsigned.
Wow.
So it's a good feeling to have, 11 kids from your combine who had zero places to go end up going somewhere. So it's been huge. So that's like one of our bigger things we've done recently. Before that, we did tons of free clinics and camps. We had a fall league team at the local Division II university called Rockhurst University in Kansas City. They usually do a fall league every year, and we had our fall league team in 2019. We had a bunch of kids from the Kansas City, Kansas area where I worked at the Boys and Girls Club when I first moved here. So we fielded a team with them, and that was a good opportunity. Finished second out of 8 teams. And these are kids that don't go to school together, no practices, but it was just something that we kind of were able to do good off the strength of just relationships and just, being together that day and seeing what we can do. So that was pretty good. And right now we're gearing up to launch our AAU program starting in the spring. So I'm excited for that. Really excited to finally get that, because I always want to do the AAU thing, but you start to realize the logistics, the numbers, the space, the overhead, the practice times, the organization, having a team, a little bit of a staff. And it's dude, it's going to take a lot longer than you think. So, 5 years later though, we're going to do it. So I'm really excited for this summer and spring.
Yeah. And just hearing that's awesome. And I'm just thinking, I don't know where you find the time to do all that or how you're going to continue to find all the time on it.
Dude,
but that's great. That's going to be
a lot,
something,
man.
Yeah, but it's a great thing that you're doing. So that's awesome to hear. And,
Appreciate it, brother.
I hope that there's enough time for all the other things in life that you got going on, but no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great, Coach. So steering into our topic of getting an underachieving team on track, let's kind of set the scene here of when you found yourself in that situation as a coach. So what was the situation that you were in? Maybe what were the expectations maybe that you or the program had going in? Where did some things start to fall short? And when did you sort of realize, okay, we got to change some things up here?
Dude, so it's actually funny, man. So last year, my second year at Blue Valley North High School, so that fall 2020, I just got back from training. I'm in the U.S. Army National Guard, and I went to boot camp April 2020, the year of COVID.
Wow.
And so it sucked because that previous year, we went to state, man. We were in the Final Four, and at halftime, they told the coaches, "Hey, man, this is it. There's no more state. This is the last. We were the last game played in Kansas in 2020." And and it was terrible. It was terrible year how it ended. And then I went to boot camp. And when I came back in September, we're getting ready for the next season, high hopes to win state, which we ended up doing. So while I was there, we had a freshman team, and my role at that time at Blue Valley North was the JV varsity assistant. So our freshman coach decided to leave for some family obligations he had to attend to. So they had no freshman A coach. So, our head coach was like, "Hey, man, I know you want to head coach one day, and I think this would be a very good opportunity for you to go ahead and just take over for him at the freshman level. And it happened to be the freshman team was doing awful. Like they were, I think they were like 1-5 or something like that, 2-6. It was something like they were just awful. Like, they were just playing bad, and like the practices, like I was seeing the kids, and it was just like, I don't know, it just wasn't like, it wasn't it. And it's funny because I'm fresh off of a hurting loss at state. We were right there. I just went to boot camp. So I'm back and I'm ready to roll, like I'm just in a whole different, I'm in a whole different mind state. So it was kind of cool, honestly, because I was able to do what the drill sergeants that I was blessed to have did for me and the bunch of guys that were with me at basic training. I was fortunate enough to have some drill sergeants that weren't like complete, just complete meanies. I'm gonna say for the sake of using a good word, of being, on this podcast, but they weren't good people. They were just kind of doing it to pick on us, get their rocks off, just be whatever, not care, whatever. But we had some drill sergeants that cared. They pushed us, and I've seen dudes who were so out of shape when I first started with them, and now we're killing everything. So it was a good thing. So I was able to give back. And the first thing I noticed, man, when I went to the practices, it was just like energy was down. No one was playing defense. Like it was just bad news bears, man. Like bad news bears. So I immediately set the tone, and I think it helped a lot knowing that the kids knew I came from the varsity level down. So I think that was a huge advantage that I had, that I came from the varsity level down. So they were already like, oh, okay. Like, not that they didn't respect their other coach, but it was like, they'd known him as a freshman coach. Like, not that there's anything wrong with that, but like when you have a coach come down from varsity to coach the freshmen, when there's freshmen that are aspiring to be at that varsity level one day, it's like, oh, like, okay, this is go time. And it also helped a lot that I had just came back from boot camp experience. So having that too, the kids are like, oh man, like this guy just came back. He's in the Army. Like he just came from boot camp. Like this is about to get real. So, one thing I did, I never bashed the kids, or I never like tried to hurt them. Like everything I did, I set the tone. I set the standard from day one. I think that's one thing that's very important when you try to change a program around, or whatever the case may be. You got to set the tone from the start. And once that was set, practice was nothing like they were used to, because I know a lot of times coaches, there's a system they like to have certain plays ran. They like to have their certain secondary breaks, primary breaks. They like their zone plays, their 4-out-1-in plays. But, that all sounds good and it's great to have that. But if your kids lack the basic fundamentals, none of that matters. So what we did at practice, it was a very simple practice every single day, but it was hell. Like we did a lot of ball handling, a lot of cone work, and a lot of shell drill, and a lot of the Florida defense drill, where they go, sprint, close out, slide right 2 times, slide back left, go sprint, close out. And we did so many closeout drills and shell drills and defensive slides for like 75% of practice. And the other 25% was just cone work, passing, drive, kicking, like that kind of stuff. But we just did it.
So you stripped it down.
Stripped it down. Like it was it, but the biggest thing is, although that method was good of what I was teaching, the intent behind what I taught was even bigger. Like I would always stop practice and explain stuff, or like the best player, quote unquote, on the freshman A team came to practice a little late, and we all practiced together, freshman A and B. Well, I would have everybody run until he got ready. And then he'd be like, oh, everyone's like, what's going on? Well, you're late. Well, mom didn't take me. I get it, but did you let me know? We have a group chat. No. Oh, well, like it's just like those little things. Like I would get on everyone, and like it would and it was fair though. It was fair, very fair. And the kids like fair. The kids won't get mad at you if you correctively discipline them, but you're fair. They'll never get
Yes,
mad.
I agree with that.
So I did a lot of that. It was a lot of that, and just a lot of motivation, a lot of like being. I'm a very energetic, passionate guy, anyways. When I'm on the court, like off the court, dude, I'm very like chill, quiet. I like do my own thing, but when I'm on the
Total
on the
different thing.
hardwood, dude. Yeah, dude. Especially when it comes to even practice, skill work, like whatever it is, I'm the hype man. Just because I love it, and I was doing a lot of that, and but I also kept the kids grounded because there'd be certain times where we finally hit the hump. Like we had 2 bad games. And I was like, it was just bound to happen. It was like my first 2 games, they were terrible when I took the team over. But the crazy thing is it was terrible, but we played so much better. Like I had parents coming up to me after we lost by like 20, dude, like 20 points, 22 points. Oh my God, we love the way you're coaching the kids and they're playing so much harder. And I'm like, yo, we just lost by like 20, but like it showed that there was a definite change in how they played.
Yeah.
Even though we lost.
I'm sure it just looked different. Like how you just feel
Mm-hmm.
the difference on the court sort of situation.
Oh yeah. The vibe was felt. Even though we lost, like the guys were emptying the tank, they were picking up, they were playing D. And that's what was going on. And then we finally won our first game since I coached, which was their first game in like I said they were like probably 2-6 or 1-5, something like that. So that was our second win of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And they were stoked. And then we had another game that we should have won. We lost by like 6, or it was like one of those games that you should have had. You lost by 7 or 6 points, something like that.
Been there.
Yeah, which like in our head, I counted as a victory. My father-in-law was there, and he's a big basketball guy, a big supporter. And he was like, man, I count that as a victory, man. You guys played hard. You guys did good. And ever since that game, we didn't lose a single game. There's a team that had beat us by 20 points earlier that year. We ended up beating them twice. One time that we beat them was in the end of the season tournament. We were the last seed, and we beat all the seeds that were above us. Like it was just a great way to end the season. We end the season on a 7-1. Because we lost that one game we shouldn't have lost. But if we didn't lose that game after those first 2 losses, we would have won every single game after that. So it was just honestly one of the best experiences I've had coaching basketball.
So there's a lot to unpack with that, and definitely a lot to sort of jump off on. So let's kind of talk about the coaching style that you kind of implemented to kind of get the group on track. And you kind of talked about your energy level and the way you kind of strip things down a little bit, going back to basics and everything. What was the process of buy-in and getting the players right on track? Were they eager to change things up and do things a little bit different? Was there anything you had to do to kind of get them all invested in the way you were changing things up? What was that like?
Yeah, I think there were, because there were some kids on that team who were just tired of losing too. Like you got your fair, it's freshman A and B. So it's like a much bigger crowd you're dealing with because we practice together. So it was basically one big giant team, but when game day would come, we would separate it. But the one thing is we were all one team. 24 of us, however many there were, 20-some of us, we were all one team. So we all felt it. And even the freshman B team, we were the bad news bears. They were awful. But then they started playing with like energy. Kids were clapping, they were having fun, and they started winning. They won their the same season, end of season tournament we won. They won. It was awesome. But it was, I think, a good group of kids being fed up, and a good group of kids that were just like, we have to buy in because we're not going to quit. We're not going to quit playing high school basketball. So. And I think that it helped a lot that they were already on it, and I didn't have any kids who thought they knew it all. All those kids wanted to be coached. They wanted to get better. There was no standout guy who was scoring 20 a game and he had all the answers, and parents who knew they had all the answers. It was for what you can deal with in youth basketball. I can say I was very fortunate to be in that situation I was with those freshman kids that I had.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I forget, I do want to ask about how the way that you approached kind of getting that freshman group on track, how did that kind of fit in with the overall culture of the program itself? How did it kind of fit in with what was maybe going on at the different levels of the program as well?
Oh, well, so it's a good way to say that. So our sophomore team that year, I think they went undefeated. They might have lost one. No, I'm pretty sure they went undefeated or they lost one game that year. So like they were doing really well. Our JV varsity team and our varsity team just was in the Final Four for the state championship game. So like, it's like, dude, like we're not here to mess around. Like, what I'm saying? It's like, dude, this is like something where this is a good program right now that you guys are a part of. So you guys need to understand what the standard is of this program. So like, I think having that also helped a lot. Cause it's not like I was some coach from varsity that came down and our team's always below 500 getting blown out. And it's like, dude, like, shut up, man. What do you know? You know what I'm saying? But it's like, there's a lot of like, it's some good expectations here in this program because of what we're doing. So it helped a lot. It helped a lot having that there as a backing, to me, setting my tone and giving the expectations. That's
right. And I could imagine that, there might have been a bit of, anxiety or a bit of nervousness maybe on the freshman's part if they, they were struggling the way that they are and they see the level of success that's happening with the older groups and on the varsity level that they might really start to feel that like pressure, like, wait a minute, we're not getting the job done and the other groups above us are, and really that I'm sure that could have also helped with that buy-in because I'm sure they wanted to turn the ship around really quickly.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, it's hard not to, saying, and it's hard not to see that and have like a sense of urgency. Like, we kind of like need to do good too because everyone's doing good but us. Like, but it also helps that I'm 28. So at the time I was 26. So, or no, I was 27. Yeah, I was 26 going on 27.
Mm-hmm.
So and I don't know, maybe this is just me, but maybe it's like this for other people too. But like those high school, middle school years, those years are like yesterday for me. Like that's why I want to do high school. I thought I wanted to do college, thought I wanted to be an NBA and coach, but like no, like I want to do high school.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is because it's like yesterday to me. So like I know exactly the anxieties those kids are feeling. I know what how their lifestyle is, how it is being a high schooler. I know it like it's yesterday. Like I empathize a lot with them. So I think me having that mindset makes it a lot easier because I know how to coach and I don't get too disappointed because at the end of the day, I know they're still like not college kids. They're not pros. They're high schoolers and middle schoolers. So like I know how to talk and how to get that message across without coming off like a tyrant in a way where kids just shut down.
Yeah.
You got to know how to talk to your personnel. And I think that's huge.
And I think that's a huge difference between, the collegiate level and the high school level. Like you said, is you're very much focused, especially on the high school level, on the individual and the person. And it can't just all be basketball. There has to be a lot more that's involved in it. And that seems especially, 14, 15-year-olds, if you're coaching at the freshman level, they're just, not only was that, are they just, straight out of middle school, but, they're maybe playing in front of the most people that they've ever played against, going for all the adolescent stuff. And there's a lot more going on that you have to be aware of as a coach. And it seems like you remembered that and definitely understood that as you were working with them.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Didn't shy away once and forget about any of that. So, it does help that, you're aware of what you're doing. College coaches, it's a lot more business. Like, like I can like the kid, I can see a potential, but these kids aren't producing, dude. I'm gonna stop making that 6-figure salary I'm making, and my, what I'm saying, the family stops eating. Like it's a little more like serious at that level. Like, we gotta win, or I'm gonna get you in the transfer portal. I might get fired, or So it's a lot more, like you said, though. It's a lot more business and a lot less intimate. and
And
with it being more intimate high school.
absolutely, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about what led to your practices being what they were. I mean, we talked about how you went right back to basics and some of the different drills and some of the, the ball handling and all the different things that you worked on. But what sort of led into that type of practice plan and led you to think, this is what we have to do in our practices to get to where we want to be?
Oh, because at the end of the day, man, and people bypass this, but the fundamentals are the fundamentals. Like, people need to spend time and look up what the word fundamental means. Like, it's very important and an intricate part of whatever you do. Whether it's soccer, drawing, speaking, typing, writing essays. Like, there are fundamental values for each topic or each realm you're in. And in basketball, man, it's simple. If you can't play defense, you can't close out, you can't slide, you can't play help side, you can't dribble the ball, you can't pass, then you can't shoot, then it doesn't matter what we run or what our sets. It doesn't matter. Like, it just doesn't matter. And, especially at the freshman level, you have to really drill those fundamentals. Like, you have to, you understand too, like, it's freshman practice. Like, we only have like an hour 30. We don't have like the whole 2.5 like varsity. Like, we still have parents that drop the kids off, have to pick them up. You got to let them go at a certain time, or else, mom's gonna get mad that she waited an extra 20 minutes outside for her son. Then she calls the AD and the head coach. And then, it is what it is. So you have to like maximize your time and really focus on what's important to drill every day that will help you win games. And it's going to be your defense, your conditioning, your passing, your layups, free throws, and your shots. And every day we did the mic and drill, we did shell drill, we worked on closeouts, and we did defensive slides. Like that drill that we did, that Florida drill, closeout drill, where you start the baseline and you sprint, close out, and you slide right, slide back left, and you do it again the whole length of the court. We did that for like 15 minutes straight. Like, we did, like, it was very extreme, but like, we didn't stop.
Got to get it done.
No, you have, like, I told them there's no other option. I told the kids in the beginning, I said, I promise you guys, there's only going to be, I tell all my kids that I coach this, there's going to be only two options, two things that's going to happen from you being with me for this amount of time. You're either going to get better or you're going to quit. Like, that's it. There is no in between. Like, that's the only two options. And once I laid that out and we do the drills, I know the drills are long, they're tiring. Of course they're tiring, but like, you got to add the motivation. You got to like get them going. You got to get them fired up. You got to have another coach who's there to get you going too. The team managers clapping it up. Like, it's got to be a whole thing. It can't be corporal punishment. It has to be, we're doing this and it sucks, but we're going to get better off this.
And I think that's a really good point about how, you're going to ramp up the intensity, you're going to ramp up the levels of what's expected in your practices. But then, like you mentioned, at the same time, you can't necessarily come off as like a dictator, somebody who's being punitive or just dogging them for everything, but you have to be encouraging with them as well. And like you mentioned, when you said when you're on the court, you're a completely different person. And I think that's a takeaway I kind of got from so far from this conversation is, you as a coach almost have to flip the switch and really, besides just doing your whole practice plan different, your energy and intensity and positivity has got to go up to a whole new level as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, man. Before, like, anytime I see the kids before on the court, dude, it's all like all the kids. I've never had one kid. I mean, maybe there are kids, shit, I don't know, but like, I've never had kids say they didn't like me. Like, they all like me. Like, they're like, now when I'm at Park Hill South, like, all the kids will sneak out of class and come see where I'm at. Saying we'll talk during lunch. Like, saying like this birthday, actually, my 20th birthday, which was on November 19th. I got so many like messages and texts from players that like I never, like, that's the one thing I never like thought I would get. And like, I got them and it meant like the world, you know what I'm saying? And like those kids, I'm not nice. Like, I'm hard on those kids too. like I'm very hard when we're on the court, but I'm like real with them.
Mhm.
And that's one thing that you have to be. Like when I was the freshman coach, like, before practice or during school, I'd, joke around with them, say what's up. And like, but we were on the court, like when practice started, they knew it started. Like we had a big circle gathering and we talk about what we're going to do in practice. I give like a quote and then, we talk and then whistle blows and, we're working.
Yeah.
So it's very important, I think, that all coaches need to really establish that's what's going to happen. Be someone they can go to. Don't be a tyrant, a dictator. Like, yeah, run your practice, be firm, have your expectations, have your standards, but also be their kids. I'm saying you're in the business of youth. You're working
Sure.
with youth.
Yeah,
Whether it's
yeah.
sports, art, you're working with youth. Like
It's
that's
not
the
college.
biggest thing. Yeah, that's what it is. You're working with youth, man. Like you're working with kids. That's the biggest thing overall. Like in the big umbrella of all this, we're working with youth. So
Yeah, 100% agree. I want to, you talked a little bit about the different sort of things you like to run in practice and, kind of really stripping things down to the basics and everything. But when it actually did come to running things on the core, what were you looking to do after you incorporated all of those basics? How did you go about, putting in any form of an offense or any sort of a defensive system? What was that process like?
So we already, there were already offensive sets that we had in mind that were already, we had some offensive plays out of the 4-out 1-in. We had some 2-3 zone plays. We had, a press play already. So they already knew they were taught that already, during those first 6-7 games that I wasn't there. So like they already had a basis of what was going on. But my thing was, okay, I'm glad you know it, but like you're not good enough to execute any of this stuff. So my job was, we just did that like 2-3 that first week of like whole new boot camp practice. We just changed everything up. And then as the games went on, we still had that same standard of like what we're going to do, drill, defensive drills, hard, go hard, whatever it is, Mike and drill, cone drills, closeouts. Then I make sure like, all right, well, we got like 5-10 minutes left. Let's put the group up and let's go over the plays again. Let's go over some plays again, or maybe as a group, we'd go over like how to score in a zone setting, or as a group, we'd go over the press because we ran the same things freshman A and freshman B. So, it helped that beforehand they knew it, but they just were bad at fundamentals and just couldn't play, but they already knew the plays. So it helped. So, as I came in and just restructured the whole thing, they never lost those plays. That's all they ever knew. So then when it was time to say those plays, or it was time in the huddles or timeouts or pre-game time, we had the luxury of having some time in the pre-game locker room and write down some key notes of what we're going to do, how we're going to play. So that all worked out. It worked out perfectly fine. It translated very well. It was a very smooth transition that, the coach before me was able to have them, know the plays and know whatever it is we're running.
Yeah. And I think that's just an interesting point to kind of take away from a situation like that, where maybe you do have things that you like to run, sets you like to run, out of bounds plays, inbounds plays, whatever the case may be. And you may know that they work and they're effective, but you might have to do what you did and kind of, forget about all of that and go back to that foundational piece and really get all of that stuff taken care of. And then kind of go back to the other pieces that you want to get to, because I've been there too. I can draw up a lot of stuff and have a lot of great things, but if I don't have a player that can, dribble with their left hand or who can make an effective jump shot, well, then, what am I doing? I got to strip that down to what I actually need them to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so with that, what did you see in terms of their on the court execution on those sets, or on those out of bounds plays, or on offense or defense, because you were working so much on their skills during practice? What did you start to notice with their execution when it came to some of those more set looks?
Man, honestly, like it's crazy because I didn't really have to call the set looks. Like we generated so much of our points from fast breaks and defensive stops. Like it was kind of unreal. Like sometimes we would score in the offense in the half court set, but like it rarely got to that. Like when I tell you our guys were just going, like they were just going. Like we would just make our layups, we would get fouled, we'd shoot free throws, we'd get in our defensive press. It's kind of like it's called like 3 ends, kind of like a diamond press, and that generated stuff a lot. And in the half court set, sometimes like if we were caught up on a team that played 2-3, we worked the high lows and that kind of stuff, or we'd have certain plays that we call when things got slow. But most of our identity and offensive points came from defense, which was a beautiful thing because they were just going at that point. They were just playing, They were picking up, they were rebounding, outlet. Like it was crazy. It was a really beautiful thing to see, which is how I like to play. Anyway,
and that might be a good kind of takeaway point of this whole conversation in general is if you have a team that's struggling or not performing up to the level that they need to be, simplifying things or maybe running things a little bit more faster and not as necessarily structured or set might be what your team needs to kind of get them going.
Yeah, absolutely, especially in the freshman level.
Yeah.
Like especially at the freshman level, they're here to learn. They're not here to learn your stuff. They're here to learn the game of basketball. And that's one thing I think coaches need to understand. Like, even as you get to the higher levels, kids can always get better. Because my thing is, what's the point of me just focusing on making him memorize things that he'll forget when AAU season comes? Or in AAU season, I make him memorize so much stuff that he'll forget once high school season starts. Or we just bash his brain with so much things to memorize that he'll have to forget once he gets recruited to play the next level. Like, I think it's very important. I'm not saying don't have plays. You got to have some plays, obviously. You got to be able to have a couple here and there, but like the main thing is you have to make your kids great at fundamentals, because fundamentals translate at any level.
Yeah,
your kid
can go in any system at that point.
Absolutely. I'd rather have a kid who's very disciplined on his help side defense, is at the midline, knows where to be 2 passes away, 3 passes away, knows how to run his lanes, knows how to space the floor, knows how to move up the ball. Like, I like to see those things because that's teaching them the game. And I think at the high school level, at the youth grassroots level, before they get to college, you have to be able to teach them how to play properly so that when they get to that next level, they understand, hey, man, like, I know what to do. So whatever a coach needs me to do, I'm going to do that to the best. And I have a little game of myself too. And when the coach sees that, then he'll figure out where to put you in there. And then, who knows what can happen. Team ends up winning. You go pro overseas, and you just win March Madness, you get a tourney berth, you just have a good college career, and who knows what could happen, but like there's no point in, and I think that's one thing that coaches need to understand, like you can't have too much of an ego to really like, it has to be what I draw up, like it has to be what I'm teaching. Like, I think you need to teach at the high school level, man. You need to teach fundamentals. You need to be able to see your team out there just playing basketball. Like, I should have a team move out the ball and set some down screens and cut back door and you show great help and box out really well and throw outlet passes that aren't part of any secondary, primary, whatever break or any type of double away screen. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, if you need to be able to teach those things, that's all it is, right? Every play a coach draws up are just structured fundamentals.
Yes. And they need those fundamentals before they can do any of those things.
Absolutely. It's just about a coach wanting to write up where he wants his backdoor, where he wants his down screen. Well, those things should be taught anyways. You should learn how to down screen, learn how to backdoor, learn how to do all that stuff. So, that's my thing. My thing is that's what needs to happen anyways. So
yeah, and I think that it's something for a lot of coaches to consider and really think about is, if they're going to be running all of these different, systems and all of these different sets, and they're not getting the results that they want, to maybe really focus on, okay, like what's lacking or what isn't being executed. Because like you said, if those things aren't being run the correct way or being executed the right way, then as you mentioned, there has to be something that's like fundamentally lacking. And I think it's okay to simplify or pare down your practices a little bit, and maybe not necessarily work on a bunch of complex, maybe sets or a lot of these more intricate things. And it's okay to have a practice that's a little bit more simpler, but it really gets down to the fundamentals of what you're trying to get done.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Nail on the head.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's we got about 10 more minutes here. So we'll want to make sure I hit a couple of these other points here. So we talked a little bit about some of the successes that you've seen since you sort of implemented these changes. So as your players started to really buy in, and as they started to really get after it and start to see those results, what did you see out of them? And not just in terms of like basketball players, but just as, people in general, because we talk about, high school coaching is about coaching the person and not just as a basketball player. So what did you kind of see as the season was going on in terms of their basketball, but also like them as people in terms of that level of development?
Dude, just their confidence, just the way they their personalities became, like they just became more confident. It became more and more like just the way they moved was much more structured, much more disciplined, much more like militant in a way, as ironic as it is. Me being fresh out of boot camp, coming over, flipping the switch, and changing their whole season upside down with not just wins and losses, but as far as how they've been coached and how their practices are. They changed as we changed the team. I would see kids in the hall, and kids would be a lot more, much more energetic. Hey, coach, came to practice. They started to talk to me a lot more. Like they started to like, it was like, yo, like we're not just coach now. Like, hey, like this is like they have a little swagger to them. Like they were like much more comfortable with me. Like it just turned everything around and made it to not more so just like coach basketball, became more like a family kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I think especially when you go through things with people, adverse times and hard times, and you go through that with people, you and those people, your relationships strengthens.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I noticed a lot was just they were just a lot more comfortable with me. They come talk to me like kids I wouldn't even really speak to because I didn't see freshmen on the varsity level, so I never really got to see them during the day, or nor did I really pay attention to them. Not because I didn't care about them, but I just didn't know who they were. Like I don't go to freshman practices. We had different time practices. Like we just had different schedules. So now that I was spending time with them, I started seeing them more and noticing them more, and they started noticing me more. And it was just you could tell the vibe was like, it was just a better vibe, and they were just a lot more pep in their step when they were in school, and just the way they walked around. It was a lot more chest up. Like we're doing good. We're not like really just a crappy freshman team.
And that's good for freshmen to be at that point when they kind of have that level of confidence and they can walk with a little bit of swagger to them, because it's not always the easiest for freshmen to kind of walk around with their heads up high, because that sometimes they feel pretty low on the totem pole, but then hey, they start really
Absolutely.
success. It's like, wait a minute, I can be confident in myself, and that is a good thing.
Absolutely, man. Freshman is freshman. You're a freshman in high school. Like it's like there's a lot of things going on. You're worried about so many different things, fitting in, friends, new environment. Like it's a total different beast than middle school. So I think it helped that they were one on a sports team, and two, the sports team was getting better, and they were getting better as a result. And it kind of just all showed in their everyday life at high school. So
for sure. Coach, what advice would you give to a coach who's in this situation of having a team that's not performing to the level that they want? What would you tell them if a coach came up to you and said, man, we're just not where we need to be right now. I need some advice. I need some ideas.
Yeah. So I think, first things first, man, you gotta know who your players are. You got to know, you got to write down in a notebook. And I got this from a player of mine, his dad, a really good guy. He gave me some tips a lot during our season last year. We won state. He told me, just get a notebook down and write down all your players' names and write down their strengths and their weaknesses. And, every coach has an idea when they see the kid, just everyone period in life, you have an idea of what you see and you think about it and you think, But when you write it down, it's a whole different level of knowing. So I think, just have a notebook, write down all your players' names, and by each player's name, write down what they do good and what they do bad and how you should improve it and what's their strengths, what their weaknesses are. And then once you have that concrete, because now it's concrete, a thought is a thought until you put it down, whether it's an action and typing, writing, performing, whatever it is, a thought is a thought until you put action into it. So once you write that down, then you can kind of all right, now let's put those players in position as to how they can help us. You may not have, you may have some guys who, are just fast kids.
Yeah.
But aren't the most, trustworthy with a ball in their hands. You may have some kids who are dogs who have complete confidence in themselves, but they just can't play too good. So you may have a kid who is a good big body, but he can't really dribble, can't really push the ball in transition. So you got to figure out how you're going to use those kids. You got to be able to use those kids and make them hone in on their strengths. And once you do that, it changes everything. It changes the dynamic of everything and your expectations of the kids. And then you're not so frustrated because they can't do what you want them to do. Instead, just make them do what they're really good at. And that's the whole point of the team. And it goes back to that same point. Not to backtrack too much of your question, but you have to adjust your program to players you have. You can't adjust the players to your program. If you have a guard who can't dribble and you want him to be your point guard so bad because he's the perfect size and whatever the case may be, well, if he can't dribble but he's an athlete, dude, then just make him pick up guys full court. You got a guy who's a big man, but he can't run the floor like that. Well, then stop putting him in the lineup with guys who are running. He may have to come off the bench. So what? Have that talk later. But that's the biggest thing, man. Just kind of knowing your players. If you're in a rut, know your players, really figure them out, and then just change what you've been doing. It clearly hasn't been working. So find a way to get the team back together, whether it's through I don't know, team bonding, or maybe one practice. It's just, just have them play. Just see what the kids' games are like. Go with your staff, figure out what's our team really not good at. Watch some film. Really, it's not hard, man. You just gotta, it all goes back to this. You gotta love this. You know what I'm saying? You can't be a 4-month coach. You can't be a 4-month coach, or it's going to drive you crazy, and you're just going to be full of blaming on the players. You gotta love this. You gotta be in this game, for a purpose, for a reason, for a passion for it, and it'll be it won't be rocket science. To figure out how to fix the problem.
And I think some of it too, just speaking and adding a little bit of my own experience, is just kind of taking the ego away a little bit. It can be hard, but you have to really kind of put that aside and say, it's not working, and even if I think it should work, or even if I think we should be doing this, if your record doesn't lie about where you're at, and your player development doesn't lie if they're not where it needs to be, and I know that could be hard sometimes, but I think swallowing that ego is and putting the kids first is one of the biggest gains, and I feel like that's kind of always kind of been your approach, is putting kids first and what works best for them, and it's nothing personal for you in terms of what you have to run or what system you have to put in. It doesn't seem like you take that approach where it's about you, but rather what's best for them.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I don't care what it is, man. What I like to play have guys. Sometimes I like to have guys pick up guys full court man to man. Yeah, sounds great. But then sometimes there's guys who just can't guard full court. So you got to guard zone. But you know what? I'll make sure that zone is the best zone ever. Sometimes there could be some guys who, the dribble drive may not work for them. But you know what? Then we'll just keep spreading him, pass and cut and pass and cut. It is what it is. You have to adjust. Some teams, you got to play pack line D against some teams you don't. Like it you got to adjust, man. It's a game. People forget it's a game, man. It's a game, and you have a team. Your job is to run that team so well, prepare them that they can adjust and win any game that happens, whatever the circumstances might be. So
yeah, excellent point. Couldn't agree with that more. Awesome. Coach, to wrap up, there's a couple questions I ask every guest. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here with this first one.
Absolutely.
You gave me a lot of great coaching moments and a little nuggets here and there. So let's see what other one you got for us here. Thinking back on your coaching career, what is a coaching moment of yours that you think others listening would be able to learn from?
Coaching moment. It's currently ongoing. And it has been going, but dude, it's never gonna be convenient. Never, ever will it be convenient. Like, you have to understand, it'll never be the situation you want. You'll never be able to have the perfect kid with the perfect family, who will have all the financial resources, that will be able to drop them off at practice, pick them up on time, start on time. You'll never be able to have the kid show up every day ready to go, never fussed out, or you might have to like get in his butt a little bit. Like, it'll never be convenient. You're going to have to sometimes feed the kid, drop him off, pick him up, drop him off, pick him up. Like, their parents may not always have the money to pay for whatever it is. Like, you have to understand, it's not a convenient thing. It's a thankless job, but you do it because you love to. And if it doesn't work out, you tried. At least there's no regrets. But you do. This is that's one thing I would say to any coach. It is not ever going to be convenient.
And I think that, just to sort of add on to something that you said before about what you said, you got to coach the players that you have and make those players work to the best of their ability. And you can't necessarily, as you mentioned, think about what you wish you had or what you you want them maybe or where you hope that they are, even if that's not where they are currently right now. Like, you have to see where they're at and work with the players you got. And like you said, it's not always going to be the ideal situation. I mean, they're kids, right?
Oh, never. I mean, it never. Like, it's just all a big now what, because you know what? You could have the best players. You could have the players you want. Well, they're not academically eligible. Now what? Or one decides to just leave.
Worldwide pandemic occur or something like that.
Right. Exactly. First year, you got the juices flowing. Final Four, state, it's canceled. Now what? Like, it'll never be convenient. You just have to understand that that's the game you're playing. If you're all about convenience and you're not willing to go through that, then you probably shouldn't coach high school basketball. Maybe just volunteer here and there, go to the YMCA, maybe a little, second grade team once a week, low expectations, but that's the truth though. Have the low expectations, have fun, like, just do it on the minimal level where you won't get disappointed.
Hey, and we need solid youth coaches, so that's nothing to sneeze at too. If that's something you like doing, by all means, we'll take it. I like that.
Absolutely. Make it easier on us, man.
For sure. All right, awesome. Coach, to wrap up, I give every guest what I call a 60-second soapbox, but I'm never timing you, so feel free to go longer. Your platform to get out your final thought, a closing message, a closing idea, something to leave the viewers with. So or listeners. I don't know why I said viewers, listeners. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up the floor to you, Coach, and I'm going to let you take it away from here.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, Coach. So just for this final minute, man, I just wanted to first say thank you for having me, Coach. It's a big pleasure, big honor, whether or not this is Pardon the Interruption or ESPN or, Cyrus Radio, as a kid who came from very, very humble beginnings, immigrant parents, came from literally the bottom, did the whole playground, blacktop, not be able to play, get cut, can't try out, whatever the excuse or adversity was, to be here and having someone like you wanting to ask my opinion and my expertise on the subject that I love the most. I'm truly grateful. So first off, I want to say thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to being on here again. Second off, man, I just want to say, do this because you love it. You know, time and time again, I've been in a situation. I think it's just God putting me through the ringer to really experience certain things, so that when my time comes, I'll know exactly what to do, what to expect, what not to do. Because I've been in a lot of situations where I've just constantly thought I was ready, but no, I'm going through another learning lesson. And through all my learning lessons, I will say, do right by the kids. Do right by the kids. Don't use the kids for basketball. Use basketball for the kids. And that's one thing. I'm not familiar with Coach Peavy, who coaches at Duncanville. I ran into him earlier this fall at the Team USA Coaches Clinic, and we got to talking. Real great guy I looked up to, admire what he did at Duncanville and how his practices are ran. So we got to chopping it up, and kind of looked at him as like a mentor, and he gave me some good advice. And one thing he told me when I expressed some of my frustrations that I've been witnessing, and what he's seen in his time, he always told me, make sure you don't use the kids for basketball. Use basketball for the kids. So make sure when you're doing this, man, you're doing this for the right reasons. You're helping the kid out as much as you can. Now, don't enable the kids. That's a whole different thing. The more you do, and you don't hold them accountable. Yeah, it's silly. You're going to lose, they're going to lose, and it all looks bad. But make sure you're holding the kids accountable and you're doing whatever you can for them, not for you, for them. Make sure you do it for them. One thing a buddy of mine tells me, he asked me this question a couple of times, and he's a head coach at University Academy. And one day he told me, he's like, hey, man, so what would you rather have? Would you rather have, a bunch of state titles and your guys don't go D1, maybe they go D2, maybe they don't go anywhere? Or would you rather have a bunch of guys, all your players go D1 and you don't win a single tournament, single state, I'm not picking the kids going D1 all day, every day of the week. Like all day, every day. Like, because what I gain? Like, I got the titles, but I failed all the kids I coached. So basically, thank you for your services, kids. Thanks for giving these state titles. Next. Like, that's terrible. I don't think that's how things should be. So that's the one thing I'm gonna say, man. Do right by these kids. Do right, man. I've seen too much of kids go through the ringer, get brought in these prep schools, get promised all these things. Parents are paying all this money with hopes of their kids being sent to a different country, the United States of America, to get what they're supposed to do, and they get one, maybe practice a day, no weights, no morning shoot around, no skill development. Volunteer assistant coach, wink, wink, me having to pick up the kids and take them to the rec center and put them through my own workouts just so they actually get something out of it. Like, do right by the kids, man. That's one thing I'm gonna say. Do right by the kids. Don't do it for yourself. And if you do, you're just a bad person. So that's it, man. That's all I got for you, Coach.
Really, really well put, Coach Joghee. I want to thank you for spending some time talking about your program, your freshman team, your coaching style, how the whole journey and how everything went for you and getting your team back on track. So best of luck this coming year. Best of luck with Faith Over Fear and getting that rolling and your AAU program going. I know you're going to be a busy man, but
yeah,
I know you'll put your all into it. So thank you, Coach, for spending some time and good luck this year and going forward in all the subsequent years of all the other work. I'm sure we'll keep in touch.
Absolutely, man. Thank you. Tons of blessings and thanks. I appreciate you for having me again. Keep doing your thing as far as coaching and growing this podcast. And I don't doubt one day this podcast will be a big platform in the basketball community for not just coaches, but for players and, whoever it is involved in the basketball community. So I appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for listening. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.